We love picking his brain about all of these issues. He's a foreign policy expert, having previously advised the former VP. And of course, you can find Stephen at Yates Comms on social media, on Twitter. Stephen, that's a good, decent question that Doocy asked. I mean, that was August 29th. And granted, they were probably all involved in getting getting our Americans and Afghan civs out of there, but we still had boots on the ground at that point. So now that we don't have anyone, and that's the result of still having some people there and at least still having apparently some kind of CIA network, because the CIA had apparently warned, but it was too late, that there were children nearby or involved somehow. How is this over the horizon policy going to work with this administration now that nobody's there?
Well, first I have to give a disclaimer that I am feeling the spirit, so no one will be harmed by this dose of sarcasm and cattiness in response to crazy answers to good questions. But Steve Doocy was right on the mark with pushing this issue. He had like 10 dead down the center high fastballs right over the plate for Psaki today, and I think she whiffed on all of them. But this one, of course, it lays bare the idea. Number one, the intelligence that this was based upon was absolute garbage. And the fact that our system was forced to account for it was only because of a rare example of a lot of mainstream and really global media going and getting actual intelligence, like real video confirmation of what happened, faster than seemingly our military could. And no one in the chain of command takes any accountability. So, I mean, really a good follow-up question might have been, does he think that this is still something that can work? Is who in the world trusts Joe Biden to pull the trigger on something going forward if he not only missed this ISIS-K target, if ISIS-K is a real thing, but killed civilians and doesn't seem bothered by it at all? A beach weekend was perfectly cool with him.
Yeah, a beach weekend, and they apparently briefed him on what happened, or what CENTCOM was getting ready to announce, and he went ahead and went back. Yeah, I mean, he's got to have downtime, Stephen. I heard one of his surrogates saying that earlier. The president has to have some downtime, but he's been hiding away.
Every day after 1 p.m.
Yeah, or sometimes earlier, right after the oatmeal in the morning. I mean, then you have to have some downtime with us. I want to switch gears here. I had to ask you about that, but I wanted to talk with you about this ongoing story that I think we're going to really see the significance of in the next couple of years. Of course, France is mad. New Zealand was as well, but particularly France, because they lost this. I read numerous different monetary amounts, $66 billion contract for these nuclear propulsion submarines. And I think that they had been originally proposing diesel, and this was all in response to Australia and the United States and UK forming this new agreement to where instead of just sharing intelligence like with Five Eyes, it's military capabilities, and now we're sharing with Australia for the first time ever this nuclear technology or information about it, because China's been there's been a lot of saber rattling, especially after the fallout in Afghanistan, but they've been having this economic war with Australia for quite some time. There were spy ships that have been in Australian waters, and if Australia didn't depend on Chinese imports as much as every other nation does, probably they would have been brought to heel. But I think it's a measure of how weak China still is and kind of an embarrassment for them. But still, we have to be proactive with this. And I wanted to get your take on it, because correct me if I'm wrong here with this whole AUKUS thing. To me, it seemed like France couldn't complete the contract on time and on budget, and Australia had a better deal. And when it's your national security at stake here, to me, that seems like that matters more than feelings. And I wanted to get your take on this.
Yeah, well, there's a lot kind of tied into this. There's the France part of it, and I can go back to eating freedom fries and not really caring very much, because they should pay more for their national defense. They should pay more into NATO. They should step up. You want to be at the big boy table, then you take on big boy jobs, and you win some, you lose some. So there's part of me that doesn't shed a tear on this at all. And some French crying, maybe I just don't have the sufficient language sophistication to understand why that should matter more than regular crying. But it's just really, there's a lot of drama woven in. I mean, the French didn't exactly withdraw their ambassador after a number of horrendous things happened in the world. And picking this as the time to pull their ambassador back on the one hand is hilarious because Joe Biden said everything was back and diplomacy is back. And so, holy crap, Joe, where did your favorite ally go? Who is John Kerry going to talk to? And where is he going to vacation if there's no ambassador to take him to France?
Right.
So there's that whole side of it. But this isn't actually as big a deal as it's been sold either. I mean, the administration was breathlessly trying to advertise this major national security announcement. This is going to really push back the Chinese. Well, obviously, nuclear subs aren't showing up in Australia tomorrow.
Right.
Probably not next year. It's going to take some time. And guess who's going to be a busy bee working on everything during that whole time? It's China. They're already hitting blue water. They're going to the Pacific side of Taiwan. They're showing up in Japanese territorial waters. They're all over the South China Sea. So this is a real problem now. I don't think this solves that much. There are a bunch of Obama-Biden appointees who think that they're super smart galaxy brains who've been talking about a pivot from the Middle East to Asia for over 10 years. And this, I think, is just the warmed over leftovers of that idea. I just wish it was real because when it comes down to it, Australia is very far from China. And so it's not going to be as relevant to a Taiwan contingency, a North Korea contingency, or other pushback in the South China Sea soon enough.
Yeah. And that's interesting. You bring up talking with Stephen Yates. You brought up North Korea because North Korea has joined China in condemning this association. And no matter, and I kind of agree with you because I think, what did they say, that it's going to be a couple of years of discussion, or at least a year of discussion to try to figure out where to go. Like, how do you not already have this kind of in place? It's not like China just decided to start being a threat, yesterday. That right. To me was a little odd. But they don't like, obviously, China takes the slightest anything as an offense. But North Korea is now being very vocal. And I don't know if this is just Kim Jong-un letting his crazy murderous sister take over some of this aspect of their diplomacy or foreign policy. But you have the tiny tyrants down there in North Korea, and then you have China. They're very critical against this, or very critical of it. Talk to me a little bit about, is this going to solidify Russia and China and maybe, if they all have a common enemy and they think their common enemy is moving, does it solidify their ties a little bit more than we want to right now? Because I feel like if you're going to make that move, you need to have everything in place and be ready to go, even when you're just announcing that you're thinking about being ready to go. Does that make sense?
It does. Now, to a degree, the snarky response to that is when Biden goes to the beach or the bunker, bad boys go wild. And that's just what's happening around the world. All the bad people are going to push their agenda. The serious part of it is that this weakness that we have put out there into the world, there's no one that's buying that there's going to be a cost or a pushback. So, the Chinese are pushing on all cylinders. The North Koreans don't like to be ignored. Sometimes they pop off just to say, hey, we're still here and we want to receive your angry letters again and come and try to pay us off again. And so there's going to be an element of that pushing the envelope in every quarter. The bad people in the Middle East are going to find an option. The bad parts of Putin world, which I understand they've just found some new ballots and are going to steal another election. So that's a thing again. And so there's just all kinds of problems that run out of control, it turns out, when no one is actually doing their freaking job in the United States government, when there's no leadership, no accountability. The commander-in-chief can't stand a few questions that he's not instructed to call upon. And we've got the leaders of Australia, India, Japan coming to D.C. soon for a Quad meeting. And that's just going to make China shiver their timbers. Because they're going to rev up their snarky press releases. But in reality, what can any of these leaders really expect out of Joe Biden? He just bagged on the French. He'll cut and run from any alliance. He left our Afghan allies. So there's just no way this gets better. And so, yes, the Chinese are going to push. The North Koreans don't want to miss out on the fun. Unfortunately, there's going to be more bad actors that are going to see a go signal from this.
Goodness. Talking with Stephen Yates. Stephen, last question for you. What does a real purpose-driven shift to the Pacific from the Middle East look like?
Well, number one, you don't leave the Middle East entirely. You keep advancing your interests where they matter. I still think that the United States alliance with Israel matters. I still think that a lot of what was put forward in the Abraham Accords in the last administration matters a great deal. Finding purpose in common prosperity and common security among allies in that region still matters. Why would you cut and run from that? But there's nothing stopping us from telling the truth, empowering our allies, helping them have more of their own deterrent capability, but actually engaging a little bit more seriously in the political warfare that China has been playing much better than we have. So there are some cost-free ways we can make a real pivot, but it takes leadership and commitment. We probably ought to have more people in universities studying the right languages in the right regions, and maybe a little less wokery that is influenced by the Cultural Revolution, more focused on the revolution that's coming our way. So there's a lot of little things that added together could make a big, real move. But a few submarines here or there is not going to make the difference. I wish it were otherwise.
Yeah, that's a good point. Stephen Yates at YatesComms on Twitter. Stephen, always appreciate your time from the Minecraft Lego bunker there in your undisclosed location. Have a good week, my friend. We'll talk with you again soon.
Thank you, Dana. Take care.
Take care.